Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Hashtag One With You, the PLDT Enterprise Virtual Forum for the Retail Industry. This is Inu Mandapat from PLDT Enterprise, and it is my honor to be your host for this afternoon. To all those who are tuned in, we truly appreciate you taking the time to be with us this session. This afternoon, amidst the pandemic, we will get to hear relevant data from our keynote speakers from Global Data and from PLDT Enterprise. We are also fortunate to have with us today a roster of distinguished panelists representing the retail industry to discuss key learnings and experiences, as well as share best practices on how different companies has managed to mitigate the negative impact of this crisis situation. And most importantly, the session aims to highlight the role of technology as we enter the future of work, as well as how we navigate through our daily lives. If you have any questions and suggestions, feel free to key them through the chat box. Before we begin, here's a quick rundown of our reminders. First, for uninterrupted viewing experience, make sure you have a stable internet connection. Second, feel free to use any device to view the virtual event. For better appreciation, turn up the volume or use your headphones. And now, to officially start the program. Our first presenter is a highly respected equity analyst from the investment banking sector. He has studied the technology, media, and telecom sector for the last 25 years. He heads the development of Global Data's thematic research ecosystem, a single integrated platform for looking at all themes impacting all companies across all sectors. Here to share with us the latest data on the impact of the coronavirus on the global economic landscape, its significant effects on international, economic, and trade activities, and global insights that will help retail industry respond, thrive, and recover amidst the crisis. Please welcome on screen Global Data PIC's Head for Thematic Research, Mr. Cyrus Mewawala.
Thank you, Ina. Thanks for inviting me to your webinar. So I'm Cyrus, I'm Head of Thematic Research at Global Data. I'm going to talk to you about the impact of COVID-19 on the global economy, and in particular on the retail sector. So the impact of the coronavirus pandemic has been catastrophic for the global economy. That goes without saying. In the US, the worst impacted major economy, confirmed cases of coronavirus have passed 800,000, with over 45,000 deaths. Italy has had over 180,000 cases, with 25,000 deaths. Governments have responded by implementing lockdowns to save lives and protect their health systems from being overwhelmed. The result is a collapse of economic output. All major stock markets are down year to date. The US market is down 13%, UK down 24%, Brazil is down 47%, China, by contrast, is only down 6%. Governments have responded to the collapse of incomes by implementing financial stimulus packages. In the US, the government has implemented a $5 trillion package. In Japan, it's $1 trillion. Germany, $1.2 trillion. And in the UK, $446 billion. Now, this graph shows that volatility has increased in all major markets, whether they're stock markets, commodity markets, foreign exchange markets, debt markets, or IPO markets. Oil prices have dipped below zero last week, but they've bounced back to around $20 a barrel. Many stock markets fell 30% between the start of 2020 and the last week of March, but since then, most have been trending upwards. Across almost every country, employment figures make for a grim future. The International Labour Organization estimates 6.7% of worldwide working hours will be wiped out in Q2 of 2020. That's equivalent to 195 million workers not working. Around 5 million people in China lost their jobs in January and February of this year. In the US, 26 million people filed unemployment claims in the 5 weeks since President Trump declared a national emergency. Active job vacancies advertised across the world fell 22% worldwide over the last 30 days. In the UK, the number of active job vacancies fell 41% over the last 30 days. In India, they fell 23%. Now, we've recalibrated our economic growth forecasts. Global GDP is now going to fall 2.3% in 2020, according to the median growth projection from analysts at leading investment banks. China is the only economy that is projected to have positive growth in 2020, albeit it's just 1.4%. Every other major economy is expected to shrink this year. France GDP is projected to decline 5.1% in 2020. Germany down 5%. Italy down 7.1%. And the US down 5%. So to summarize the economic impact of COVID-19, all major markets remain volatile. All prices have collapsed to $20 a barrel. Many economists have cut their GDP forecasts. Global GDP is now forecast to decline 2.3% in 2020. Many economists predict a recession. The US sees a historic surge in people applying for unemployment benefit. Governments are responding with aggressive measures. Central banks have cut interest rates. Unemployment is soaring, hiring is on hold, and more layoffs are expected. Now, I'm going to talk about the impact of COVID-19 on the global retail sector. So the epicenter of this pandemic is moving west. The origin, China, was the largest retail market globally in 2019. Europe collectively was the second largest and the US the third largest. So when these three regions go into lockdown, the impact on global retail is huge. And when India, the fourth largest global retail market, worth $950 billion, went into lockdown just a little bit after the other three, the world's top 4 retail markets effectively shut for business at the same time. As the first market to be hit and the first that appears to be in recovery, we can learn a lot from China. So this chart shows the year-on-year growth in retail sales across China in January and February 2020, when the virus really took hold. It hit hardest just as the Chinese began celebrating the Lunar New Year, the peak holiday season in China. These figures highlight what we are seeing elsewhere. Food and health-related categories are outperforming. We all need to eat, and frequently we want to stay healthy. But discretionary spending plummets when stores close and people are confined to their homes. The largest declines are in big-ticket items like household appliances and furniture, but also in clothing and footwear. If you're confined to your home, there's no need to buy work clothes or occasion shoes. Now, online should come into its own if we cannot visit stores. And this shows that food and general consumer goods did see a pickup in China, as you can see from this graph. But as you can also see here, clothing and footwear was still significantly underperforming, even online. H&M reported its sales in China were up 27% in the December to January period in local currency. But its sales for the quarter December to February were down 24%, which demonstrates the devastating impact on sales of COVID-19. And H&M still had 184 of its 518 stores open in China. Apparel is going to be the greatest casualty of COVID-19. It is the second largest sector after food and grocery by spend, but it's highly fragmented, and the weakest players with no cash reserves will be in trouble. A survey we did in the US earlier in March this year shows where consumers are shopping for essentials, and it is the food and health retailers that are the winners, not the online players. Amazon is not the clear winner one would expect because of its online capabilities. It does not have the high participation in food online, despite its ownership of Whole Foods, that makes it the main destination. Walmart has been investing heavily in its online capabilities in order to compete against Amazon, and this has given it a key advantage now. That said, online food and grocery still has a low penetration of the overall market, and food retailers are struggling because they don't have the capacity to meet demand. Here you see our original forecast for year-on-year growth in the retail markets in China, the US, the UK, and Italy. Green shows our original estimates. Black shows how our forecasts have changed post-COVID-19. Why are we still forecasting growth for China? Well, the impact has been fairly short-lived so far. Stores reopened and production and sales started to pick up in March. And if this continues, there should be a bounce back over the rest of the year. However, across Europe, the shutdown of businesses and the lockdown of households is going to last longer than a couple of months. And as mature economies where demand has shifted from consumption to other priorities, and as sustainability and ethics have started to become major issues, this enforced isolation can have a major impact on our attitudes to consumption when it's over. This chart shows the retail segments we believe to be the biggest winners and losers. Food and grocery is undisputably the biggest winner. Stockpiling by consumers is expected to continue. The biggest losers are the home improvement product sector and clothing and footwear. Electricals will benefit somewhat from the move to home working technology. So to summarize the impact of COVID-19 on the global retail sector, retail revenues will fall in most major economies. Retailers with weak balance sheets will fail, and a severe decline in demand for clothing and footwear will be seen all across the world. As governments begin to loosen lockdowns, retailers will really have to prepare for a new world. This means a greater focus on technology. You are looking now at GlobalData's 2020 theme map for the retail sector. It shows the big themes keeping retail chief executives awake at night. Clearly, COVID-19 is the biggest issue today, but tomorrow's successful retailers will focus on technology themes, and the biggest theme occupying consumers' mind today is sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mewawala, for those valuable insights on retail industry. We anticipate that when the pandemic subsides, retailers will need to refocus their business on technology. Thank you for those insights again. Our second speaker has been with PLDT for over 11 years, handling regional and Metro Manila sales teams. He has provided business solutions to various businesses in both fixed and wireless platforms. Currently, he is handling over 5,000 retail customers. To share with us the negative and positive impact of COVID-19 in the Philippines, as well as data on the industry solutions that can help mitigate negative impact of the pandemic, please welcome Corporate Relationship Management Head of PLDT Enterprise, Mr. Anthony Fernandez.
Thank you, Ino, and good afternoon to everyone. The pandemic has indeed affected several business verticals, but the retail sector is seen to be the most affected with a month-long lockdown in Luzon, which accounts for significant revenue contributions for the country. This is due to several factors, such as non-essential retailers have closed stores, and similarly malls had been shut down, except for food and medical supplies. The essential retail and food has predominantly focused on online, takeout and deliveries, to which businesses who are data and digitally equipped has significantly utilized their website and e-commerce platforms, while the others are very much present in several social media. The dependency on delivery and contactless payment is now a necessity rather than an option, and cost-cutting measures, which includes manpower resource, will be more evident. This graph is a representation of the worst, moderate, and best-case scenario impact to key economic sectors after this COVID-19, with reference to gross value add. The retail industry is forecasted at 2.6% losses vis-a-vis 2019 gross value, assuming we end the ECQ by the end of second quarter, and 13.9% if we end it in Q3. With all these factors, consumers have been more reliant on online platforms and purchases had an immediate need for e-payment facilities and convenience of home deliveries. They have also increased data usage on wireless communications, being mobile and utilizing agile cloud-based platforms, which allows them to book necessary purchases anytime, anywhere. This consumer behavior has been existing for more than 3 years, and adoption to online platform is not going to be a challenge. The online landscape of the country is comprised of 67% active internet users who spends a lot of time digitally connected and provides 48.7 million in aggregate of online purchases. 62% are mostly aged between 16 to 64 years old, where a huge portion of this are digital natives that owns a device, familiar with mobile applications, and does a lot of e-commerce activities. This is very evident with the most recent study conducted in January 2020, comparing to 2019, the growth of consumer spending on e-commerce on the following categories: food and personal care, 20%, toys, DIY, and hobbies, 17%, electronics and media, 14%, furniture and appliances, 13%, and lastly, fashion and beauty at 12%. The consumer behavior amidst COVID-19 has not changed. In fact, it has fueled the need for retail businesses to adopt to the new normal. Retail businesses will have an opportunity to capitalize on the consumer spending habits through various online enhancements. They need to accelerate various digital initiatives such as AI or artificial intelligence. This will allow them to make suggestive purchases based on demographics and past purchases. Implement a chatbot for a more efficient way of engaging their customer with the various FAQs. Amplify social media marketing through e-commerce or marketplace that will integrate digital payment for convenience. Ensure that branding for their products are well understood by the recipients through social media listening platforms that allows them to promote timely offerings through SMS blast and digital customer surveys, which will encourage repeat purchases. Enhance their websites through various cloud and collaboration platforms, which gives meaningful engagements with their customers, employees, and employ work-from-home solutions to non-critical roles in their business. Lastly, as their businesses will intensify online engagements, the need to ensure an end-to-end security must be in place because transactions will be driven through data gathering. This will be our new normal. The future of retail will be on our fingertips. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony, for those wonderful insights. Those were very good insights. And now we move on to the next part of the program. At this point, I would like to introduce the esteemed roster of panelists who are also live with us this afternoon and will be joining in today's insight sharing. First up, founder and CEO of French Baker, Mr. Jean-Luc Hua. Any reaction or insights from the previous presentations?
Yes, thank you very much, Ino and Anthony. I'd like to give a short feedback on the comments of Cyrus. It's very well organized, and I think this is what we hear every day on news media. And this is probably the reason why all of us, business leaders as well as consumers, are already conditioned to believe that the new normal is exactly what he just told us. And what Anthony told us, the future of retail is in our fingertips. I like it very much. It goes without saying that everybody's expecting a drop in GDP because the sum total of all transactions in the whole Philippines, as defined by each and every single individual purchase, will have gone down with the total shutdown. And I cannot dispute any of these facts because this what people tell us, what we hear about. I believe that fashion retail, beauty, things that we personally feel that we do not need will probably go down, and that food and grocery, pharmacy, and those that we feel are essential will continue to have a good future. From my experience, I believe that it had this COVID situation has in fact made us more digitally aware of the need to shift to digital platforms. For a long, long time, we have been warned and we have been told that the future is not brick and mortar. So this is a very good lesson for us to learn. We at French Baker kept on postponing, and actually, because of this, just only in the last 3 weeks we had done our homework, and we'll be doing lots of digital platform to sell to people who we do not need. I also agree that the most important thing that we as retailers should focus on is what Anthony said, the end-to-end security of whatever we do. There's so much risk and so much horror stories being told. And I wish that our suppliers, people who are supposed to help us get into this new digital selling plane, should help us really fortify our defenses because we do what we do best, which is to retail. Food, in my case, clothing in the case of other people and other non-essentials. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kua, for those insights. Next, may we hear from the Managing Director of Silverworks, Mr. Louis Ocampo Gutierrez. Your insights, please.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Louis Gutierrez. I am a managing director of Silverworks. Of course, our products are non-essential goods, so we are the most hit industry right now for retail. And of course, before the pandemic, we always thought that it was okay to continue expanding stores for my brand. But despite the retail apocalypse happening in different countries, we always felt that the Philippines was immune to these things because there's still so many people going to the malls, eating, meeting, and shopping. But of course, this pandemic happened, and we are forced to accelerate all our efforts towards going digital. I started doing digital a few years ago, of course, with the help of PLDT, and I didn't really accelerate on it. But right now, I feel that this is the best time to go into it if you haven't gone into it, because definitely brick and mortar stores will not survive given this long time for the ECQs. And going back to the doom and gloom report of Cyrus, and of course, what is going to happen here in the Philippines with Anthony, I think this is the time to really put even the SMEs, the small and medium industries, to go on digital. And I think the government should support it like what Singapore is doing right now, and make sure that these small industries are given a chance to go digital.
Thank you, Mr. Gutierrez. Last but not least, for our final reactor, President of the Philippine Franchise Association, Ms. Cheryl Quintana, your reaction, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you, Cyrus, and thank you, Ino. Thank you, Cyrus and Anthony, for the data that was presented earlier. It was a very comprehensive one. It's actually has given us a guide on how our decisions would be able to be more effective on how we can handle the situation right now. And while we can't get our heads wrapped around, while we can't get the things wrapped around our heads at the moment, this is a best opportunity for most retailers and brands to recalibrate. As everyone was saying, that the value chain was actually judged by different factors before, it will be judged differently now as we look into our value chain to be for our suppliers, for the brands to survive this. You have to be resilient. You have to be able to be more responsive to your market, as well as to how fast you can reconfigure with the crisis that we are facing right now. I'd like to give insights in terms of the franchising sector. It is a multi-billion peso contributor to the economy. And as everyone knows, that one of our flagship platform last March, which is Franchise Asia, and we need to suspend it, a lot of our members are looking forward on how we can partake on afterwards the crisis is faced. And 95% of our members at the moment of the franchising industry is stalled. So most of us are closed, and 1/3 of our members are in the retail business. Well, a lot are in the food, of course. And the insights actually that we are looking at is, though there is an acceleration of growth for digital stores, for digital presence, it is in fact an opportunity for us to take a look at different omni-channels that is being provided, or that we can take as part of our strategy. There are a lot of hyper-localism as a strategy being faced at the moment. While there are logistics available in NCR, there is a logistical nightmare outside Metro Manila. And while this is happening, there is a rise of hyper-localism among our areas outside NCR, which actually means that you have to be relevant with your market. This is also an opportunity for us to take a look at the consumers having better appreciation where our time is better spent at the moment. And while we are looking at the rise of or the growth of the sector in terms of food, in terms of needs for the groceries and the essentials, my company, Oraispa, is actually in the essentials group because we manufacture personal care. But there is this called lipstick effect in terms of during a crisis. So after some time, people will actually look forward to buying products that gives them some small indulgences, not the big ticket items, but actually they're looking forward to how on buying items that are that give them a sense of happiness, a sense of sanity while they're up in their homes. So yeah, I think that's how our brands, our retailers should be able to cope with the crisis. That the next normal will actually everything on the cloud, but it is also a reality that our consumers look at brands that have traction beyond profit. You know, embracing causes and building your brand, especially for the Filipino brands, to actually build your brand locally so that you have a steady national following at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Quintana, for those insights. And thank you all to our panelists. At this point, we'll now officially proceed with the Q&A segment.
Key in your questions, comments, and suggestions via the chat.
Okay, to everyone who's tuned in this afternoon, join us and be part of the discussion by keying in your questions on the chat feature. For our first question, with the local retail sector being defined largely by the brick and mortar stores, what do you think will the new normal for the industry, your business? I think Mr. Gutierrez can answer this one.
Yeah, of course, no. Given that my industry itself is a non-essential industry, I see that given the restrictions that are being done during these ECQs, brick and mortar stores, especially inside the malls, like where I am situated, will be opened really late, probably maybe in September. So in the meantime, I'm currently trying to figure out how I can support my 400 store employees who are waiting for guidance on what to do next during this time. No? So aside from the online shops that we are now having, we're looking at training select groups of people who are ready, willing, and able to do social media selling. So, of course, when the malls finally open, the attraction for sale events and gatherings in the malls are definitely not happening soon. So there will be lesser tenants who will operate. I'm sure many businesses also will close since their funds have already been drained. I myself will be closing underperforming branches, which should be around 20%. And of course, the tenants who will survive will need to find new ways to continue without relying on foot traffic.
Thank you, Mr. Gutierrez. Anything else?
Yeah, of course, given all this scenario, moving from digital and balancing whatever is going to happen to the physical stores is the thing that we're doing to make sure that when it happens, omni-channel, which this is the seamless integration of the physical stores and online shopping should come really into place finally. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gutierrez. Our next question is for Ms. Quintana. What advice can you give to those looking to start retail business? What should they take into consideration given the new age of retail?
Well, like most businesses, actually, what you really need to do is to go back to basics, to really put investment on how your brand will be able to get a space in the market. And there's also a study that shows that even franchising is, of course, good during good times. It's good to purchase franchises or to invest in a franchise business during good times. But there's also a study that shows that even at crisis, it's better. Actually, it's one of a equalizer, a player that actually gives forward to a lot of people who wants to get into business because it cuts already the spectrum. When you buy a franchise, and then you can start a business already right away. And so that is the reason why we're also taking a look at providing opportunities to our people to take a look into this investment platform. And in fact, we have several programs that are running now at the Philippine Franchise Association, and one of which is to be launched by May, which is how to choose the best franchise for you, or what is the best franchise for you. So we're taking a look at investments that actually fall less than ₱1 million, because a lot of our consumers right now actually takes a look into how are we going to multiply the resources, the meager resources that we have right now, to be able to get revenue afterwards.
Thank you, Ms. Quintana. for those insights. The next question is for Mr. Ku. The question is, how will you integrate digital platforms practices into your business?
Oh, yes. It's not difficult because it is something that you can already experience when you travel abroad. Most food retails, grocers, supermarkets have already platforms that are on the cloud. You can download, and then with an enabler like PLDT and the other suppliers, you can actually call them and then tell them to come in and then walk you through the process. What is important is not the platform per se, but whether or not your company or your organization is ready and equipped to handle these volumes of businesses. From my experience in the last 4 weeks, when we launched our delivery online, well, in quotation mark, we realized that consumers just wanted to engage, but were very particular about any and everything that you are trying to sell to them for the first time. So if your organization is not equipped with that, you kind of get into the trap of over promising and under delivering. So you might, in our case, what we did was just to focus on a few friends first. And then from a few friends, we started to communities, larger communities. And now we're looking at possibility of engaging into many, many more markets around Metro Manila. But do you need a platform? You have to talk to your supplier about it. We started with simple order taking, and then it went to the use of Google Form with the link, and now we're seriously looking into some templated suppliers platform that can enable us to do delivery. For example, I just had a chat with one of our suppliers this morning that introduced us to a subscription format called Baker Online. So I had a long meeting with our supplier, Puratos, and that was a good start. And after that, I'm really seriously looking into it.
Thank you, Mr. Gua. Um, Here's one question. This is directed to Anthony. Anthony, here's your question. How did this pandemic change how your company operates and collaborates on a daily basis? Will such changes affect how you will conduct business after the ECQ has been lifted?
Thank you, Ino. At present, with this pandemic and this COVID-19 present in our times, our company has actually been preparing for a work from home environment. Maybe after the ECQ has been lifted, there will still be significant departments that will still continue to work and operate on a work from home. This will allow PLDT to provide continuous service regardless whether we are on foot or in the office or remotely working, just to make sure that we provide our customers the best service they will get. So essentially, I guess we are not exempted from being one of those beneficiaries of a collaboration tool, such as what we're using now, which is Microsoft Teams. Readily, this is available for all customers, and if there will be any opportunity for other industries to collaborate, even in a remote environment, PLDT will always be here to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. We have here a question for Cyrus. Retail companies normally rely on leverage to operate or grow. Given the reduced cash inflow and the apprehension by banks to lend, what actions can businesses take to manage this?
I think that's a very good question. I think in some countries like the UK and the US, the government is providing support, and they're doing it through the banks. Clearly, if the banks are not going to lend, then there's an issue. So if you're a listed company, you can go to your equity shareholders and have a rights issue, and a lot of companies, I expect, will do that. You can go direct to the debt markets to raise debt. But one of the things you could do is to use technology to save costs. So you could, to me, I'm a technology analyst by background. So, whenever I speak to a retailer, I always say you should close a few stores and you should invest that money in technology. And there are so many technologies. And one of the big issues with retailers today is they always do technology in little bits. So they might appoint a chief data officer or a chief social media officer. What they really need to do is to transform their entire business using technology.
Thank you for that, Cyrus. Okay, we have one more question here for Mr. Kua. The question is, what is your experience in reopening stores? How did you manage it? And how many stores have you opened how many stores have you successfully opened? Hello, let me repeat that, Mr. Kua. Were you able to
Yes.
get the question? Okay.
Yes. We have so far, out of 70 stores in our chain, we have opened about 25. And the only issue being that our young staff and crew and managers are not allowed to leave their homes, and they don't have access to public transport. So after about 2 to 3 weeks of lockdown, we realized that we would like to help the community by providing more bread and bakery products, especially in stores where we are located inside supermarket. So when I sounded out the call to my managers, many responded and they came in despite the risk. And we did the shuttling of our employees. And then we got the support of Secretary Lopez and of DTI, also through the office of Undersecretary Ruth Castello, to issue passes for our people to get out of their homes. It was so difficult in the first few weeks. And then as the days went by, I guess the guards realized that they're really genuine bakery workers and let them out of their homes. And by the way, we are also exempted from the curfew, as we have to close our stores today. So the experience is when you close a food shop, you should realize that many of the things inside can get spoiled. So it was very nice that the malls allowed us time to shut down. We had a week's time to go inside and take out anything that can spoil. And before we reopen, we make sure that we have enough days to clean up, to sanitize, and to basically put things back in order. Places that you don't get to use for over a week can really look bad, especially if it's inside the mall. And I'd like to make a pitch for the malls. While it is true that we are enclosed, I think even the authorities, government should realize that the malls are one of the best and safe places to be because they have a very, very effective air handling system. As a restaurant bakery operator, we have to be compliant to a lot of their design criteria. We have fresh air intake that sucks in air from the rooftop. And then we have to take out heat and exhaust output through also one part of the roof. And so in a matter of hours, you would have a 100% circulation of free air. And that being the case, if we just gave social distancing, we are distanced as it is as we bring in our cars. We're distanced as it is right now in the supermarket. And I mean, what's holding back? I think our authorities should seriously look into the fact that when people go after 6, 7 weeks, they know the risk and they're prepared to handle their own safety measures. And I think stores should be allowed to open as quickly as possible when this is over, and do not be overly cautious because inside the malls, when you allow retailers to start up, the trickle down effect, the chain reaction is going to be quicker. So the manufacturers can start manufacturing, we start retailing, consumers start to buy, and then consumers themselves are workers of factories, are also producers of services that they can sell back to all of us who sell things to them. So this kind of a trading system should jumpstart. But if we're just like too conservative, at some point it starts to injure us and injure us permanently, and that would be very sad. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kua. We have here a question for Mr. Anthony. The question is, I understand the importance of e-commerce, cloud, infra, and cybersec. But is there a comprehensive offer for SMEs? They are expecting a comprehensive or holistic solution. Anthony?
That's a very good question, Enoch. The answer to the question about having a comprehensive cybersecurity or security platform for them will always be dependent on how they would want to engage their customers. That's the first consideration, and probably the second will be understanding the capabilities that they currently have. From there, we can definitely scope the different services and platforms that we can integrate to make it more comprehensive and more efficient to use for any business, small, medium, and large. Thank you, Ino.
Thank you, Anthony. Okay, we have a few more questions here. One question is for Ms. Cheryl, and the question is,
Yes.
Given the challenges in the economic situation during these times, what advice would you give smaller businesses who have less resources in order to survive?
Yeah, thank you for that question, because as I've been saying in the fora that I've been attending, stalling the MSMEs, which actually comprises 99.6% of our economy, is like stalling the entire economy at the moment. But as we have seen, there are a lot of opportunities that gave birth to a lot of micro and small entrepreneurs right now, with the trend of hyper localism, or like buying from your communities, because at this point you can only buy within your own barangay or within your own locality. So there are a lot of birth of small businesses wherein these consumers felt the absence of the brands that they are patronizing pre-COVID times. But I also would like to talk to and send this message to the micro and small enterprises to actually embrace the crisis as if you are on a wartime economy, meaning that we are not on a vacation. This is an opportunity for us to take a look at what will be the next steps that we should undertake in order for us to survive after the ECQ, and months after, actually taking a look at the entire year already. So if I may say, we have we should undertake at least three of the steps. First is to have your crisis management plan, to write it down by taking a look at what is the SWOT analysis existing in your company, given the crisis, because it will differ a lot from pre-COVID times. And seminars like this is actually a good opportunity for our MSMEs to learn and to collaborate also, take the opportunity to collaborate with other brands at the moment, and plan out our road to recovery. Now, with the meager resources that we have, we should, I think this is also a good opportunity for the good old strategy of bootstrapping, meaning instead of queuing for what the government can dole out, what loans we can apply, what are the meager resources we have at the moment, and bootstrap as a strategy for, start with smaller things. And lastly, if you are at it, take a look at the review of your brand. It will differ also before this crisis happened, meaning our consumers now have a heightened consciousness for environmental causes and social relevance. So it is not just about profit or revenue at the moment. Of course, it is survival, but you have to take a look at your positioning in terms of how the market perceives you at the moment.
Thank you for that, Cheryl. We have one question here for Louis. Thank you, Cheryl, again. We have one question here for Louis.
Okay.
What are the key learnings? What are the key learnings your industry or company has gained from this experience?
Yeah, of course, these past few days, no, I've been on a hype moving from e-learning sessions to one another, no. Ang dami. There were so many groups who have been giving ideas from managing fear and anxiety to thinking of new and exciting learning opportunities, no. We have groups from AIM, from other resources who are giving free lessons. And actually, this past few days, I was so busy listening to all of this. It was like a whole day of meetings for the whole week last week, no? And I'm sure it's continuing now, and like this forum, no? As an entrepreneur, I feel that this event has made me more resilient as I go through the journey of evolving my business. I think, of course, each and every business needs to evolve, no? We are a 30-year-old company, and we have to make sure that we become relevant to the market. And the relevance to the market now is different from a few months ago. And of course, the mindset here is sustainability and technology. And definitely, that's where I want my business to move forward. I feel that there's so much opportunity during this crisis, and that's what we should be focusing on. Thank you.
Thank you, Louis. Okay, we have a question here for Cyrus. So the question is, it seems that global recession is inevitable. What's the fastest time that can global economy recover?
That's a very good question and a very difficult one to answer. I'll answer that by looking at the assumptions that most economists will put in their models. So the first assumption is when will lockdowns end? Because once lockdown ends, then the economy can survive. The second is which countries are strong at tracing and detecting. So, you can end a lockdown, but if you eliminate the disease, but that's not likely. But you can also slow down the lockdown. You can also loosen the lockdown if your contact and tracing systems are good. So some economies like South Korea, for example, are extremely good at contact and tracing, which means they can let people back to work, let people in the economy, and only focus on those people who have been infected and then trace their contacts. Other economies are not so good. The point about global GDP recovery, of course, is when a vaccine is discovered, but not only when it's discovered, but when we can have it in mass doses. So those are the main assumptions you'd make, and it's on the basis of those assumptions that we can forecast GDP recovery.
Thank you for that, Cyrus. We have a question here. This is intended for all speakers. And the question is, as we prepare for the next phase of retail, how can we help customers regain confidence on terms of purchase behavior? And what steps do we need to undertake to move forward from this crisis? Maybe Mr. Kuba can start answering the question.
Yes, I don't think it will be very difficult because we have a very retail friendly market. I think what is going to be more at issue would be, will our markets still have the disposable income for them to dispose of? You know, when people start to pay back loans, interest, debts, the mindset that was set in is not to buy but to save, is to consume less. And you know, when you consume less, it really slows down the economy. And so it's really in my opinion, it really depends on how people will want to enjoy their life. I mean, as I said, malls are okay. It's very, very safe in my opinion. I've been in the malling retail for 31 years. How they clean up, how they manage the airflow, so much engineering involved, the air conditioning, especially the
Mr.
top 10
Kuba, we
malls.
can't hardly understand because maybe there's a technical problem. Maybe we
Okay.
can go to Mr. Louis first or Mr. Gutierrez while we are fixing the line of Mr. Kuba. Maybe
Thank you.
Mr. Gutierrez?
Yeah, hello.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, of course, moving forward, as Mr. John said, the main concern is can people afford uh, the goods that we'll be selling right after this COVID, no? So for me, as a non-essential industry, we just have to wait. We have to come up with new ideas, but at the end of the day, we really have to wait until people start becoming confident to buy our products. But definitely during this time, it's time to show empathy to our customers. It's time to be one with them. It's time also to make sure that we are there also during these times, during the bad times, and definitely during the good times, we'll be there for them too.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Gutierrez. How about Ms. Cheryl? Maybe hear some insights from you.
Yes, thank you for that question. It's actually an opportunity for a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of brands to be able to connect continuously with their customers, with the consumers. And well, all relationships are built on trust. And trust is should start from your presence, to be continuously uh, in connection with them. Maybe your site, your page on social media should be active. And you know what? We've never been busier on the third, fourth week compared to the pre-COVID times in terms of social media engagement, because probably a lot of our customers are at home. So we actually have more members of our teams are on the are part of the response team right now. And because our Manila stores, our NCR stores are all closed and they're mall based, so our stocks are coming from our head office, which is outside Manila. So what we did, because our third party logistics, courier is not available, but our customers are already looking forward to have their products delivered. We commissioned dedicated riders, wherein this is also an opportunity to give employment to the people who can do the job in the absence of the third party logistics partner that we had pre-COVID. So we are able to service our customers 3 times a week in terms of deliveries. Small things actually that makes your consumers, your customers, feel that you are not missing out. Of course, on the first few weeks that we had during the ECQ in March, you have to help out in terms of how are they going to cope to help them stay at home. But after a few weeks, they're looking already on some activities that they can engage in their home. So because we're selling, feel good spa experience in their home, so we're able to connect with them at that level. So for most brands, actually, this is an opportunity to take a look on how our brand are placed in the minds of our customers. What is our why or our mission, and where do you want to go after this crisis? So it's also an opportunity, like what Anthony was saying earlier, that a lot of us are attending several seminars. So to gain best practices also of other brands on how they're coping with it, so that we can document how are we going to chart our crisis management plan at the moment.
Thank you, Ms. Cheryl.
Thank you, Ino.
Maybe Cyrus, maybe you have insight.
I'll make a very quick point, which is now is a great opportunity for any type of retail business to try new business models. So I'll give you an example. So in America, there's this company called Harry's, and they make shaving products. And that's because the market leader in terms of razor blades for shaving products is very, very expensive. So Harry's, you pay a monthly subscription of $10 a month, and you get everything, you get all the razor products you need every month. So food retailers, clothes retailers, if they do it properly, could move to a subscription model. The benefit to the business is you get a steady income and customer loyalty. The benefit to the customer is you may get special discounts and so on.
Thank you for that, Cyrus. Well, it's been a good afternoon for presentation on the retail, and to our esteemed roster of presenters and panelists, and to our viewers who are tuned in this afternoon. On behalf of PLDT, and thank you all for spending this memorable after. This was #OneWithYou, the PLDT Enterprise Industry Virtual Forum for the retail industry. And this has been your host, Ino Mandapat. Stay safe, everyone. Thank you.